For several months, the president's son-in-law and advisor, Jared Kushner, has been working on an initiative to reform the criminal justice system. Part of that task includes holding listening sessions. And joining us now is one man who sat down with Kushner just yesterday. That's former NYPD Commissioner Bernard Kerik. Thank you so much for being here with us. Really excited to learn about your experience yesterday in some of these listening sessions. Commissioner, we're hearing that criminal justice could include things like providing incentives to companies to hire former felons, investing in inmates once they leave prison, and making changes to mandatory minimum sentencing. So are there any that you want to add to those lists, and are these the positive changes that you think that we need most?
Well, I think those are some. I think the president realizes and Jared Kushner definitely realizes, I got to see this myself yesterday, that we're creating, we will eventually create a second class or permanent underclass citizen by the tens of millions in this country if we don't do something for these guys, men and women, when they get out of prison. We have to have reentry programs to get them back into the workforce. We have to do things for them inside the prison. Training, life skills, vocational skills. But based on the meeting I had yesterday with him, with a number of advocates and people that know the topic and know it well, Ken Cuccinelli from the former Attorney General from Virginia, former Governor Ehrlich from Maryland, the Texas Public Policy Institute, Right on Crime. I mean, these guys, the men and women, know this stuff. And I'll tell you, I've been talking about this for 4 years, and I saw and heard a lot more in an hour and a half yesterday than I've heard over the last 3 or 4 years. So I'm pretty impressed with what he's up to, what he's doing. I think the president's got the right idea, and I think he's got the right guy in charge. I think Jared is doing a good job at putting it together.
Great. Well, speaking of what the president had to say, he assembled a group, a roundtable of justice reform advocates to talk about this in January. Here's what the president said to the media after that roundtable. Listen in.
2/3 of the 650,000 people released from prison each year are arrested again within 3 years. We can help break this vicious cycle through job training, very important, job training, mentoring, and drug addiction treatment. And you know how we're focused on drugs pouring into our country and drug addiction. It's a big problem even as we speak of this subject. We'll be very tough on crime, but we will provide a ladder of opportunity for the future.
All right, so is he right? Is job training one of the biggest things that's going to break the cycle?
Here's the problem. If somebody spends time in jail or prison and they get out, they're a convicted felon, it diminishes their possibilities for employment by about 80%. If they don't have job training, if they don't have vocational skills, they don't have life skills that they can benefit from on the outside, they're never going to get employment. And the president's right. But I want you to think about the number. 600,000 people a year get out of prison. If you have 2/3 coming back into the system, we're creating this permanent underclass of American citizen. It's got to stop, and I think the president's right in doing what he's doing.
Yeah, and actually, I would love to get your perspective too on, how do we prevent this as well? How do we help the children of people who are incarcerated, men and women, so that they don't necessarily grow up in, difficult homes, difficult communities, become prone to drug addiction or being involved in crime themselves?
Well, listen, the kids, in my opinion, the kids take it the worst. They take it the hardest. Without a parent, one or two parents, the mother or the father, whichever, it's hard for them. It's difficult. We have to do everything in our power to make that better. A lot of the initiatives that they talked about yesterday with Jared Kushner are things that can be done within the system. So I'm pretty impressed. I'm telling you, I've been doing this for 3.5, 4 years now. And I heard things yesterday, initiatives and things that I haven't heard, and I think this is the team that can get it done.
Incredible. Hopefully, all those great words and initiatives with people like you on board and the others at the table will turn into action, right? That's what we all hope. All right, we're going to switch gears just a little bit here. The president held a roundtable discussion with the National Sheriff's Association today. He said they're taking the fight to drug dealers and drug pushers, which he says is the #1 way we're going to stop drugs. What's your view on reinstating the quote-unquote drug war, which a lot of liberals have painted it as such? What's your view on his attacking the drug problem?
I think there's two major things. One, to stop the drugs from coming into this country, whether it's coming out of Mexico, Central South America,
or California.
Or California.
there's cartels growing marijuana in California.
No, that's right, and we've got to stop that at the federal level. The next thing is dealing with addiction. Stop putting people in prison that that they have addiction problems. We use prison for addiction and mental illness these days when we should not. We got to get around that. So I think there's a bunch of things that they could do. I heard the president's comments. We'll see what happens. But listen, so far I like what I'm hearing. He's pro-law enforcement. We have more support for law enforcement today than we've seen in many, many years, and that's good for the men and women in the field.